I was going to say, welcome two very brave people. I don't know if that's the right word, because when I put the shout out to you both, I said, would you be up for this talk? It's going to be, what I'd like is no kind of pre-prepared stories, no kind of marketing speak, just kind of honesty, show yourselves. And here you are. So, I mean, clearly you thought that this was a good idea. But by way of introduction, well, actually, first of all, let me tell you what this isn't tonight. It's called Confessions of an Architect. There's going to be no financial information divulged, no PIN numbers, no sexual stories, nothing of that kind. But rather, well, I don't know, Patrick's kind of raising his eyebrows, like, maybe there will. Instead, just getting into your minds and talking to you about, your motivations, your ambitions, your failures, your successes, and all that kind of thing. But by way of introduction, I'd just like to give a little bit of a biography in case you don't know these guys. So just to my left here is David Marquardt, who's a Swiss architect and founding partner of Mach Architektur, an architecture and interior design firm based in Zurich, which specializes in luxury branding and international retail environments. After earning his degree from the ETH Zurich in 1993, David honed his skills at prestigious offices including Hans Kohlhoff, André Püttmann, and Hannes Wettstein. And in 1997, he was appointed to lead the in-house architecture department at the Swiss luxury shoemaker Bally, which is why you always have lovely shoes on, where he developed, but no socks, where he developed and implemented design concepts for the brand's global boutique. And then in 2000, David co-founded with Jan, the lovely Jan Fischer, Mach Architektur. I've also got a note here that you speak, you're fluent in German, English, French, is that true? And Italian?
That's true, yeah.
Okay. And he's also an active member of the Swiss architecture community, serving on juries, and this is all too flattering, really, to not see. And a fun fact is that David is also a former breakdancer.
Yes,
yes, that's interesting.
So I'm hoping one of the questions later will be, please show us your moves. And Patrick Lüth is a native of Austria. Welcome, Patrick. And a key figure at Snøhütte, the renowned international architecture and design firm. Since 2011, he has served as the managing director of the Praxis Innsbruck studio, overseeing a team of approximately 40 colleagues. He began his tenure at Snøhütte in 2005 as an intern in the Oslo office. Big up the interns. Contributing to several notable international projects. Patrick's design philosophy, to use that word, emphasizes a deep connection between architecture and its surrounding landscape. He has led various projects that reflect this approach, including the Swarovski Crystals World in Wattens, in Austria, of course. His work often integrates sustainable and regenerative design principles, aiming to create architecture that harmonizes with its environment. And a fun fact about Patrick is that he once motorbiked from Indonesia to Austria, hopefully with a comfortable saddle. That's a long way.
It's a long way.
Let's start with this idea of excellence. How has your view of what is excellent in architecture, or how has your view of good architecture changed since you started out?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that long. It's 25 years or after study, so I think good architecture should survive these 25 years. Should be done for at least 200-300 years, maybe. Maybe what could change is the function. So we have different schools now, different functions. So it's like pulling the carpet under the architecture. That could happen, or that happens sometimes. So you need to reallocate the use of the buildings. But actually, I don't think that a lot changed, because good architecture should stay good. It's a timeless thing. At least the architecture that built for eternity. Of course, interior design is more fast running, so this expires quicker, or even scenography, you set it up, it's much faster, but in terms of architecture, I think this should be one of the highest goals, to create something that lasts longer than my practice, at least.
good architecture is architecture with longevity, Patrick?
Well, I think it's changed quite a bit. What we're able to do, what we were able to think and do in the late 90s, in the 0 years, I think the main difference, and also if you look at the biennales or the global discourse, 20 years ago, we, with no bad conscience whatsoever, did crazy shapes. It was no problem. Nobody asked what's the CO footprint of this building, what are the environmental constraints that you are considering in the design process. Or maybe we were just ignorant, but actually, if I remember back, when we delivered competitions, international big competitions in 2005, it was all about doing the most incredible stuff. And I think something around 8 to 10 years ago, there was a paradigm shift in what we are allowed to think. And I totally agree that good architecture is supposed to be able to survive decades or 100 years, but I think the boundary conditions of how we develop our architecture and what we're allowed to, I think it's the balance of the in German Verhältnismäßigkeit of the things that you invest into a building, into an architectural project, and what you can achieve for the users. That there has been a shift in that. I think it's quite obvious.
Yeah, you see the Nordic countries are a little ahead on that topic. We are a little late, but that's true. I mean, definitely that's the making, but at the end, the end result or the house, and if you did crazy shit 20 years ago, it might be not the most sustainable if it doesn't work later. So that's what I mean. It could also be the crazy stuff that you did that is still really great. I think you need more than a good architect. It needs to be willing to be contributing. You need also great clients. I had some experience with great clients, but also others. So, and you need good translators, good carpenters, good workmen, good workmen craftsmanship. That's also depending on the country, very feasible or not. And I think if all that comes together, it's just more. Maybe that's also a difference. 20 years ago, you had like the architect who was the center of the decision, and now the complexity is much bigger. You mentioned it. You have specialists. It's much more about communication nowadays. That the skills they changed. So you basically need to be a good team player, maybe more than a good architect only. Of course, a good architect. What does that mean? That's why you probably laughed. I mean, it's not up to us to decide that, but it's probably if you're really willing to do a cultural thing, and I think everybody in here and not being in the body right now is part of this world. You're really interested in that. So I think that's the main.
Do you think the architect, Patrick, is less important in the constellation?
No, I think he's more important.
Tell me.
I think the architect's role as a conductor or a jack of all trades, master of none, I think that's more than ever the case. I think as a good architect, you have to know about a lot of different things. We talked about boundary conditions and the difference between, sort of very generically, the difference between art and architecture. Architecture actually being a discipline only negotiating boundary conditions and finding niches for where it can insert creativity in between all these boundary conditions. And the boundary conditions are increasing, like you said, the amount of input. So a good architect, sorry to be brabbling, a good architect needs to be able to keep the overview and identify the possibility for something that is beyond just merging conditions into a built object. Yeah. Seeing something with an added value outside of those conditions and following that. I think that's the most important skill of an architect.
I mean, that means you need more more vision, just not to be distracted. Because there are more factors that distract us: the law, the conditions, the clients who have they're much more educated. They know exactly what they want because they don't have to go to a library to borrow a book. They have the internet. They can inform themselves. So it's just that's the truth. Then when it's more complicated, you need to be stronger.
Is a project only as good as its client, do you think?
I mean, I think it's part of our role to educate the client. So I think there is an opportunity, that a client can grow in dealing with a task. I think that's a good scenario and something we also see as part of our responsibilities, especially if you, for example, talking about aspects of environmental sustainability. I mean, this is one realm where many clients do not know what the options are, and for us to tell them, to inform them, and to show them what are the possibilities and so on. So I think you can work with clients and make them grow with the project. So, but yes, of course, the client, if they're not willing to involve, then it's difficult to do good architecture.
I mean, crazy. It's also depends on the culture. I had an instance. I made a restaurant in Mumbai, and I planned the kitchen and underneath the storage room, and I made a dumbwaiter. And he asked me to take this dumbwaiter out of the plans, and I couldn't understand why he asked me to do that. But then I noticed that he just hired 5 people walking around the building with the stuff. So things can be really like misunderstanding because of different cultures or different stuff, and you just have to understand it first. Because if I knew it, I could have done that storage much closer. So things are intercultural or misunderstandings that you should be aware of.
Well, I mean, that's one of the first tasks. Is really challenges to find that kind of common language. You speak the same language as the client. I don't mean kind of literally the same language. I mean the kind of finding each other and.
Well, that's a part of of context. Really embed our projects into their specific context, and language or understanding or culture are part of a context. So, and that's also the reason why Snøhetta has decided to operate with studios in different geographical contexts. Because I mean, our first project was in Egypt. Was a competition. We won without knowing the context really well. But as soon as we got the commission, we moved 10 people down to Egypt to Alex to work on the project, because you need to really understand what you're doing. So that's why we have an office in Hong Kong and one in Shenzhen and one in Paris. Because if we're close to the project, we need to, it's like you said, it's about language, but it's also about it's about body language. It's about understanding how people move, how they behave, how they experience space, how they carry dishes from one store to the other.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
But you learn that. I mean, when you work with the client, that's a part of the process. And the good client, as mentioned, is someone who is really ready and gets the time and gets the effort to also import our design into another culture.
When you walk into a building, as architectural professionals, the building's been designed by someone else. What are you immediately judging?
Judging, I think you, as an architect, you do look for spatial qualities. If there is a spatial quality, then I think this is the added value we can give as architects is creating spaces that are more than just requirements.
For me, it's when I enter a house, it's not about thinking about it, it's the feeling.
Yeah.
And if there is no feeling, I mean, 80% of the houses you enter, you're not touched, but sometimes you enter and you say, oh my God, something's really good.
Yeah.
And then you look then you start thinking and you say,
then you
is it
cognitively
a detail?
Right.
Is it the material? Is it everything? Is it the
Yeah.
light or whatever? And you
Yeah.
start to analyze. But the first thing is the either good or bad. I mean,
Right.
you could feel really bad and then say, what is it? Is it the floor or what is
right.
it?
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think but it starts with the feeling because that's the intention of architecture. It's
Right.
not made for the brain, it's made for the heart.
I like to use a word that's not so popular in architectural discourse, it's atmosphere. But I think sort of that atmosphere, and I guess it's close to what you're describing, is when you enter a space, if you get that mood right, then potentially it's good architecture.
Why do you think? Why is the word atmosphere? Do you think not that popular?
I don't
in
know.
architecture?
It's maybe a bit esoteric, or it's too.
Well, not,
I don't know.
not rigorous enough.
It's difficult to describe. You know.
Yeah.
What it contains: materiality, space, light. These aspects that are very difficult to sort of give ratings to.
Yeah.
I think for me it's not anymore that difficult. After the ETH it was very difficult. After being trained architect, it's like there is no way that you do interior design, which is
Well, it's
go away thing afterwards. But after really working with that, and I think also this tendency came along also with a lot of Scandinavian architects, interiors, Japanese examples where the whole design, regardless it's a house, it's a built-in furniture, it's a tablespoon or the dress. It's like a œuvre complet, and
Yeah.
I think that's what I really like on the atmosphere part, that we should dare to create emotions, even if they're fake, in terms of the architecture, like pure architecture language. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I mean, it's a value judgment. Who's to say that that's fake? I mean, this is.
I mean, that's fake. Or did you believe that they're all play?
I honestly did. I really did. What really annoys you when you go into a space, or when you encounter a building from the outside? What do you just really think? Oh God, not that.
What I don't like is a waste of energy into details or materials that don't, in the end, contribute to an architectural or atmospheric expression. So showing off, poshness, I don't get it. I do prefer, a good spatial quality, and I don't care so much about, sometimes if the details are too rough, I don't care about that so much. It's really, I think, quality of space and is more important than the price tag of.
Maybe that's a very good question, because you introduced, maybe my webpage is very old, but you introduced me with the luxury, but the luxury is actually what you describe. It can be also a very simple luxury. It's not, it doesn't need to be the Russian or the Saudi luxury only, or with the marble luxury, which is also, it has a certain thing. But I think what annoys me is if it is not authentic, and maybe that's the same thing, but it can also be that this incest architecture, that architects build just details for other architects. and then they go and have a look at it, and they're very happy, and he made the client pay for it, and then he shows it to his colleagues, and the client doesn't even want it, or it doesn't even contribute, as you mentioned, to the holistic thing. And I think that's sometimes very obvious, and it doesn't need to be kitsch.
Right.
It can be also very, very nice architecture that they overdo it. And you notice that
I'm loving the expression incest architecture. It's my new favorite expression. I'm going to be using it a lot now.
I mean, that's what we want to be loved by other architects. That's part of our story.
So that's what annoys you. But what do you think your colleagues find annoying about you?
Absolutely nothing, and that's probably very annoying. It's difficult to say. I think it's annoying colleagues if you work together, and I'm sometimes opinionated, and I say that's the way, and if it turns out that I was wrong, that can be annoying. I can imagine. And it happens. No, I mean it's a journey. You never know 100%, and then.
What do you do in situation? Do you apologize in situations like that?
No, not at all. Maybe the older, the more.
Well, yeah. Patrick?
Well, I think we really try hard to not practice sort of a master architect's approach. So we really make a big effort in developing ideas in teams, co-creative teams, transdisciplinary, interior, landscape, architecture, and so on. And so we have different formats in our studios to really not be too top-down in the design process. Really, we believe in that, and we make an effort in keeping that, keeping that practice going. And so for me, leading a group of around 40 people, of course, I mean, obviously, there is no system which is completely without hierarchy. I, in the end, have to. I'm the responsible. So when I join a design team, then there is more attention on my word, which I don't always like, but it's just the case.
Yeah.
And so I tend to pull back from personally designing and asking questions. So and I think that can be annoying sometimes if I go back to the same question. Why are we doing it? What is the reasoning? What's the concept? And I see all kinds of sketches. I don't want to see the sketches. What's the concept? Can you tell me the concept? And I think that can be annoying if people have worked hard on solving the details, and I see the details, and I understand this, but why are we doing this? What's the concept? I think that can be annoying, but I think it's the only way. And maybe the other thing that can be annoying is that I allow myself to change my opinion. You know, if the
Well, that is annoying. Let's be honest. I mean, we're talking about long projects where a lot of work as we're not talking about kind of, baking a cake.
No, right. But was interessiert mich der Scheiß, den ich gestern von mir gegeben habe? No, I mean, it's really, but actually, maybe that's not even so annoying, because if the team discovers that there's a different way to, or a different solution that is, then I'm totally fine with that. So it also means that, if we find a solution that is more interesting or better, or then I'm at total ease with saying, okay, I was totally wrong. We'll do that.
So it's adding work.
Yeah,
it's
adding work,
but it's a lot of work anyway. Designing is a lot of work.
I mean, exactly. The stakes are high. I mean, this is architecture. We are ultimately creating buildings. There's a big responsibility there. I mean, we talk about allow people to make mistakes, allow your team to make mistakes. You learn from failure and so on. But at the same time, there's no room for making mistakes, right? I don't when I get on a plane, I don't want the pilot to think, I learned from failure. This is fine. I can make a mistake.
But you don't want the plane to crash. That's obvious.
Right.
But if I think we should allow for experimenting in our built environment, because if we're too afraid of making mistakes, then we're probably not brave enough to try new things. Of course, you're not allowed to damage people, but to do things that maybe aren't ticking all the boxes, I think it's actually a good thing.
And the pilot shouldn't be creative.
Yeah.
Should just follow the rules. And I think they do a good job. Otherwise,
I'm going to try something different today.
Yes.
I'm just like.
The funny thing about architecture is, and I even keep reminding myself about that, is that we are doing prototypes every single time. And if Volkswagen develops a new vehicle, I mean, they spend billions for a new car. And we do a new prototype every single time. So it's inevitable that there are mistakes. And actually, that's great.
I think we should have a drink, everybody, because you've been listening for a long time. But thank you. Thanks to both of you. You've been fantastic. I'm still clapping. Thanks to both of you. You've been fantastic guests and great company. And thanks also to the German Design Awards, to Lutz and the team for being wonderful sponsors. We appreciate it. And please have a drink. And I think there's some food as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you.